Hi, I'm Louise Fletcher. I'm an abstract painter and I wrote the How to Find Your Voice PDF that you downloaded. You may or may not know me, but I think my story can be helpful if you are looking to find your own artist voice. I know exactly where you are because I was there too. And the reason I created the guide and all of the free information that I provide is because I want people to get to the same place that I got to. So, a few years ago, probably 4 or 5 years ago, I got serious about making art. And the first few years of that were extremely frustrating. I made sludgy, muddy, ill defined, tentative paintings like the ones you can see, and I didn't know what was wrong with them or how to fix it. Over a period of time, I worked out what was wrong and I discovered how to correct it. And the things I mentioned in the PDF, if you've had a chance to read it, were the keys for finding my own way. But more than anything, the number one key to finding my way, and I know it is to finding yours because I've helped thousands of artists to do the same thing, is to follow what brings you joy. And it's to follow what brings you joy in three different areas. What brings you joy in life, what brings you joy in other people's art, and what brings you joy in the feelings you get when you're working. So let's look at those three things. What brings you joy in life? So I knew that I loved being in the Yorkshire landscape. I spent many years living in Canada and then in New York, and I missed home terribly. A lot of that time I didn't realize how much I missed it. When we moved home, about 6, 7 years ago, the feeling that I had in this landscape, the feeling of connection here in North Yorkshire, in the hills, among the stone walls, the moors, the sheep, the rocks, the broken down fence posts, the feeling I had of connection was enormous. And at first I thought, I want to paint that landscape. But I really had to dig. That's when it was muddy and ill-defined. I really had to dig into what exactly is it about that landscape. It's it's not all of it. And it turned out it wasn't the beauty, and it is spectacularly beautiful here. It wasn't the gentle rolling hills. It was a few specific things, and by pinpointing what those specific things were that made me feel connected, I was able to get clear on what I wanted in my own work. So those things include a feeling of wild space up on an empty moor. They include ramshackle, tumbling down stone walls. They include barbed wire fence posts, the signs of man's imposition on the landscape. Rickety, tumbling down farm buildings really appeal to me. I haven't brought those into my work quite yet, but I know I will. So, really getting clear about what it was I wanted to communicate. That's the things that bring me joy in life. That's what I want to communicate. Second thing was looking at what brought me joy in the work of others. What appeals to me? What lights me up? What do I, when I see someone else's artwork, really love? And I made a list. So I just thought, I like squiggly lines. I like big spacious areas. I like a contrast between light and dark. It can be anything. You could have, I like the colour red. I love blue paintings. I love thin line going across a big space. I like flowers. I like flowers when they're painted loosely. I like ultra realistic, hyper realistic landscapes with really sharp lines. It doesn't matter what it is. What it is will be unique to you. But making a list, and every time you see a painting that you like on Pinterest or Instagram, instead of saying, oh, I'll never be able to do that, look how good they are, and beating yourself up, which is our default mode, instead, notice, what is it that you love? Something in that is speaking to you. Something in that is for you. So for me, I noticed that the artwork I really responded to, particularly at that time, was always landscape based, but loose, abstracted, not representational, more about the feeling of the place than about the place itself. And you can see some of the images that at the time in particular were really inspirational to me. This artwork still speaks of landscape, but in a very abstracted way. So now I have 2 clues. I want to communicate how I feel about the landscape. I know which aspects of it appeal to me, and I know what kind of way I might want to do it. I know now it's not going to be realistic painting for me. It's going to be something in between. The third thing, and maybe most important, is what gives me joy when I do it. So if making art feels like a struggle for you, you have not yet found your way. When you find your way, the process is joyful. The result is a byproduct of the process. That's when you've tapped into who you really are. You cannot make your own unique art, the art that lives inside you, and not feel good doing it. And that even applies, let's say your art is bleak. Let's say your art is about sad things or about grief or about dark emotions. Still, it should feel good when you do it. It should feel like a release. You should feel deeply connected to you inside. And if you don't yet, it just means you haven't tapped into what it is that you're supposed to do. When I paint now, I always love it. I always have to drag myself away. And that applies whether I had a good day or a bad day. And I have lots of bad days. But the act of pushing paint around, the act of slopping ink across a wet piece of paper, the surprises that come from working freely and from expressing myself, the surprises that come from the work I make. If I constantly follow what feels good, I constantly follow what's interesting me, I keep making different work. And so my work's progressed over the last few years. Last year I was working in a lot of really bright colour, strong, bold compositions, strong colours. This year I'm currently working a lot on paper, much more muted colour palette. So the difference really comes from following what feels good and what's interesting me at that time. And what's interesting you at any given time is always going to be different. But really what I want to say to you is, it is possible for you to make unique, exciting art that excites you. It is possible for you to do something that has not been done before in quite the same way. And when you do that, other people respond. That it's weird, the more unique and personal your art becomes, the more it resonates with others. You would think it'd be different, but it's not. Your work begins to stand out in the crowd because no one else makes work like yours. People start to be able to recognize it, even when you shift, as I said I had, from bold color to limited color palette. It's still my work. People can still recognize it. Your excitement in making your own personal work resonates with others. They feel it. They want to own it. Most of the paintings that I make, I sell. That did not used to be the case. Far, far from it. The fact that that happens is not because I have some special gift that other people don't have. It really isn't. It's that I tapped into discovering this way. If I access my own joy, then other people feel something of that in the work and want to own it. In my next email, I'm going to share with you a painting session. I'm going to show you what it's like when I work. I run a membership group, and in that group, I record myself working and talk about what I'm doing often, just as a way of sharing and helping other people see other ways of working and maybe inspire other people to try fun things. And so tomorrow, I'm going to share with you one of the sessions that I recorded for the group, so that you can kind of get a sense of what this looks like in practice. It's fine to talk about it, but I want to show you what's possible for you. So look out for that email tomorrow, and drop me an email if you have any questions or comments about anything that you saw in this video. Just hit reply and send me an email. I'd love to hear from you. Take care. Bye-bye.